Some may find the following disturbing. Discretion is advised.
Never before in the history of sports podcasts have two men brought you opinion and analysis like these two. They speak for a city that's desperate for wins and titles, not whining and travesty. You might not agree with what they have to say, but you'll defend their right to say it. Sports fans across the world, from Chicago, Illinois, this is the Mac and Reed Show.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome into another edition of the Mac and Reed Show right here on the Barroom Network. If you've missed any of our past shows, they are on YouTube, on Spotify, on iTunes, wherever you get your entertainment as far as podcasts and shows, our Barroom Network programming goes. You can catch it all there. Like, subscribe, tell a friend or two. We're live on YouTube right now. I'm at the Real Evan Mac on Twitter. Ross is at Ross Reed. How you doing, my California friend, Mr. Reed?
Back from Cali. Megan Thee Stallion's on my TV right now, throwing out the first pitch for the Astros and White Sox game. And yes,
Goodness.
God bless. God bless.
It's your dream come true on opening day. Look at that.
She looks fantastic.
You got the body yaddy yaddy workout on the Nike app. I haven't done it yet. I think I'll go for it. Summer's around the corner.
Summer's around the corner. She is definitely summer ready. And she just threw a bit outside, but that's okay.
I was going to ask, how was the pitch? Yeah.
It wasn't great.
Still very in shape. Still looking great. Good for Megan Thee Stallion. It is opening day. We'll talk about that a bit. A lot to discuss on the show today. We will be talking about the rise and fall of some of these draft prospects as the draft is, less than a month away for Chicago Bears and the other 31 NFL teams. It's exciting times, and we'll narrow down the top selections for Ross for that number 9 pick for the Chicago Bears and talk a little bit more about their free agency expectations with 1 month again away from the draft, less than that. Lamar Jackson back in the headlines, asking for trades, rumors of him going to another team. We'll dissect that at length with the MLB being back. The Cubs and White Sox, Cubs played earlier. White Sox, as Ross was talking about, they're playing right now. Talk about expectations for them and the rest of the league with these new rules. It's April Fool's Day, Saturday, so we got to talk about that as well. We'll sprinkle in some Final Four talks, as this has been the wildest tournament that I can remember. And we've had some wild ones in the past. It's quite the Final Four that 0.02% of people predicted something like that. And talk about the women's too. Give the women some love because it's a very exciting group of teams there with the Final Four and NBA. Snowfall's ending, a lot to get to. And Ross, you had a great California trip. You recharged your batteries and you went to seemingly every fucking theme park on the West Coast. How you feeling?
I feel good. Yes, my batteries are recharged. My bank account is not.
Sure.
Disneyland, gas in California, the food scene, Universal Studios, having a 6-year-old, having a wife will definitely hurt you out in California. I did a little dabbling on Rodeo Drive. I'm guilty as well.
Shit. Well, there you go. Yeah.
I had to stop by the Kith store in Beverly Hills and do some damage. So I am equally the culprit as well. But yeah, it was a blast. It was a good time and good to be back. It's good to be back in Chicago. We're gonna get in some spring. It's staying light outside, longer. So, warmer days are ahead. We're 4 weeks away from the NFL draft. We got opening day today, Final Four this weekend. It's a good time. NBA playoffs starting. It's a good time to be a sports fan right now.
Ooh-wee. Absolutely. The Kith collection. You get something that who just modeled it? Bryan Cranston and Jerry Seinfeld. You fit right in that mold, Ross.
I have graduated to the upscale dad.
Swag the fuck out those ads though. You better believe it.
They are. Yeah. They are. And Kith
Ross don't let this broadcast, be a judgment on Ross. Follow his Twitter and you'll see those fits for real. That's right. We dress like we're at home on this show, which is for comfort and that's it. So to begin, we'll talk about the Chicago Bears, and feel free to chime in the comments, all the barflies out there, and we will get to those as we're talking about the subjects that I talked about at length during this show. And to lead off, the Chicago Bears are less than a month away from the draft. And, Ross, I think you recently came out with a good top 3 for you and some movers and shakers. And every mock draft is just a tiny bit different. The names that look like they'll be floated out there at number 9 are certainly Lucas Van Ness, who had a great combine, who's a really explosive edge rusher, and just a freak athlete who could really fit in for the Bears and provide some depth at the position. But then you look at the need for tackle, and it certainly feels like the Bears have not addressed that fully. And you look at the talent out there, and you look at Northwestern's own Peter Skoronski, and he's as polished a player as there is out there to help pave rushing lanes and protect Justin Fields at this point. And then Harris Johnson Jr. out of Ohio State, who might be the best tackle in this draft. He's huge. Just to get all the mix of everything you want with size, strength, athleticism. He's a stud for sure. And then you look at the SEC, of course, Broderick Jones, who's a sophomore who jumped for the NFL. You figure like a lot of those Georgia boys did for sure. He's very physical. Again, all the characteristics, had a good combine, good pro workout and everything. So it's getting to that time where I'm sure the Bears obviously have their big board of guys, and who knows about a trade that could shake up the whole order of things too. It looks pretty doubtful that obviously Will Anderson would drop out of the top 5 and fall to number 9, maybe Jalen Carter, but as we've talked at length about that, he may have dropped off of the Bears big board just because of those character issues and what have you, and the bad pro day that he had. But let's hear what Ross has to say about your top 3 right now, and why do you think the Bears should pick one or 3 of these guys?
Yeah, I came out with I figured starting last week I would as we lead up to the draft I would do a top 3 power rankings of where I thought the Bears would go with that 9th overall pick. And last week I had I had Paris, the offensive tackle from Ohio State, number 1 in my power ranking. I had Lucas Van Ness, number 2 last week, the edge rusher from Purdue, and I put Broderick Jones, number 3 last week, the offensive tackle from Georgia. And those are my top 3 last week in that order. And this week I actually have flip flop number 2 and number 3. I tweeted it out today, but I put Broderick Jones number 2 today, and Lucas Van Ness number 3 today. And it really comes off of 2 big things. I think number 1, you hit it on the head. The Bears have not adequately addressed offensive tackle in free agency, and I think they're doing that on purpose. I think they want to address that early on in this draft. I think there is a whether you talk about Paris Johnson, Broderick Jones, whether you think Skoronski is a tackle or a guard. I mean, those 3 are your good guys, and those 3 are really high level players. It's a little bit of a drop off if you want to wait until the second round. I just get the feeling right now that Ryan Poles does not want to do that. Remember, this guy is an offensive tackle by trade. That's kind of how he came up through football. He also came from an organization in Kansas City that saw the good and the bad of not being able to protect your quarterback. The good is they have been able to win 2 Super Bowl rings by keeping Pat Mahomes upright. But the one Super Bowl that they struggled on the offensive line, they got their ass kicked by Tampa Bay. And I think Ryan Poles knows how valuable that spot is. So for now, Paris Johnson is still number 1 for me because I think he's the most polished prospect at offensive tackle in this draft. I think he's the most complete, ready to play tomorrow player, whether you want to start him on the right side or the left side. I think that whichever one of these guys the Bears draft, I think Braxton Jones will probably move to the right side and be your right tackle of the future. But there's a huge but with 4 weeks left. Broderick is on the way. He's rising up the board to me. He has moved up to number 2 in my power rankings today, and I think that there's a very good opportunity that he could be number 1 by the time the Bears are drafting 9th overall. 4 weeks from today. Reason being, this kid is explosive and athletic and strong and has great core strength. And I think that he has the athleticism that the Bears want and the flexibility to do a lot of things to not only protect Justin Fields, but be able to run with Justin Fields in the open field, get out on the edge, and help guys like Deontay Foreman and Khalil Herbert, do more of these zone run reads out to the edge, being able to get out in traffic and get guys like Chase Claypool and Darnell Mooney and DJ Moore to be able to kind of work that screen game a little bit and get outside. And so I think that Broderick Jones, for my money, I still, like I said, have Paris number one, but boy, he is really impressing, I think, right now, especially he just had an amazing pro day at Georgia. And I would not be shocked if he goes ninth overall to the Bears in 4 weeks.
Yeah, and I think a lot has to be said, of course. The knock on Skoronski might just be the schedule that these guys play, right? And the competition that you play against. So the Big Ten is no slouch for sure. But you think about between Paris Johnson and Broderick Jones, I mean, those are top tier programs, of course. And Northwestern, again, no slouch, but it goes without saying that you have a good pro day to add on to that tape where you're playing against the Alabamas of the world and playing Michigan, and you're really performing well. That says a lot. And Paris Johnson, between the two of them, Johnson and Jones, they're both just massive human beings, both, over 6'5" and 300 pounds, which you would want. But Skoronski, I think where a lot of folks like him going in that top 10 is because of his mobility, because of him being able to move across the line if needed. He doesn't, as far as lineman stats in the combine, you're not looking at all that. You're looking at the tape. You're looking at how quickly they can move against these coaches testing for their reaction time and all of this when they're facing, the best pass rushers in the league. So it's tough to evaluate all the three of them right now. And then a name that just popped up, I don't know if you've really looked at it, Ross, as a possibility, but I feel like, after the combine, going into less than a month away from the draft, is Osiris Torrance, who's been coming out, and he's a senior, has been played 4 years at Florida. And that's almost a knock these days when these guys play a full 4 years of college, and you think the wear and tear on their body really shortens their career right away. It's like, oh, you're already 22, you've missed at least like 2-3 years of NFL eligibility. So it's surprising for me to see that, workouts aside and all that, to see a guy like that vaulted almost into the top 10 conversation.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Velus Jones was proof last year. Poles is not, scared to take older players. I just think that for this position specifically, he wants explosiveness and high athletic ability, and he wants guys as young as possible to, you get a left tackle in the NFL, and it's almost like having a quarterback, because those, once you get one and you find one, you want to keep them for 10 to 15 years, and you never let those guys very rarely hit the open market. They get paid, they're second or third highest paid on the team. And so I think when you can get one at 21 years old, you definitely want to, be able to get that, and then, hold on to him for the next decade plus. I know Foster has a question here about Skoronski. I don't think Skoronski has the explosive athleticism that Ryan Poles is looking for right now at the 9th overall pick. And I know a lot of people have thought about him being a guard, and mostly they call him a guard because when he extends his arms, he doesn't have the arm length that they're looking for an offensive tackle starting in the NFL, and he just isn't as explosiveness out his stance. He usually allows the blockers to come to him, and he absorbs the block, which is okay when you're playing in the Big Ten and you're playing for Northwestern. But when you see guys opposite the field from you, and it's Von Miller, and it's Micah Parsons, and it's TJ Watt, and it's so on and so forth, you have got to explode out of your stance and hit those guys before they hit you first, or else it's game over. And I think that's why I really like Broderick Jones a lot, because he has that explosiveness and that athletic ability that Poles, I think, covets right now, and he's extremely young. Redshirt sophomore coming off of the national champion Georgia Bulldogs.
Yeah, good points there, Ross. And to your point about tackles getting paid, just look at this free agency. And Orlando Brown getting paid by the Bengals for 4 years for $64 million. And then Mike McGlinchey getting huge money from the Broncos, almost $90 million, $87.5 million. So that's what you're trying to get in and McGlinchey's 28 at this point, but he's earned that contract after playing his ass off in San Francisco for so long. So it looks certainly to be like this is the number one need on offense, obviously, for the Bears. But And Lucas Van Ness, we talked about Jalen Carter. You think about the other prospects like Tyree Wilson, who's out there, and Nolan Smith. Maybe if he's available at 9, you really look long and hard, because these edge rushers are just as important as perhaps a tackle. And for a Bears, the offense was really as bad as the offensive line was thought to be going into the season. I think it certainly outplayed expectations, even though Justin Fields was running for his life a lot of the times. But look at Tevin Jenkins, look at progression from that young man, and really shuffled along in Braxton Jones, who was a diamond in the rough type of player, where they could work at it. And maybe Ryan Pace has some other idea than to draft an offensive tackle at number 9. These guys are super appealing when you look at Nolan Smith and you look at the physicality of Lucas Van Ness. Or if Jalen Carter does drop to 9, you really got to consider, is the tape was there, right? And his play throughout his career at Georgia was pretty incredible. And before, this whole reckless driving, before this law, this skirmish, what would you call it? This whole confusion with the law coming up, that really threw a wrench into his, character, however you were trying to look at his outlook, I should say. Anyways, like he really looked like he would be that guy who is destined to be a top 5 pick, if not number 2 overall, something like that. So I guess what I'm asking, Ross, is how likely do you think it is to take an edge rusher or some defensive player over these tackles that we talked about?
Yeah, certainly it's possible. We talked about edge rushers and stuff like that, but I wouldn't sleep on even the Bears looking at corner. I mean, Christian Gonzalez, the cornerback from Oregon, if he's there at 9, it's going to be really, really difficult to pass him up. I mean, listen, remember, you still have to pay Jalen Johnson, or you don't. Jalen Johnson is a great corner for the Bears. He's been great for the Bears, but he also can't stay on the football field. In his career, he gets hurt a lot, and so you got Kyler Gordon from last year. You got Jaquan Brisker. And you want to be able to re-sign, Jalen Johnson, but listen, also Christian Gonzalez, he's got star potential in Matt Eberflus's, kind of upscale cover 2 system. Same thing with Devon Witherspoon, who's going to be a cornerback coming out of Illinois, another local kid. But yeah, there's some edge guys. I think edge guys would be a possibility if the Bears wanted to trade back a little bit. So if there's maybe a guy on the board and somebody like the Patriots want to move up a little bit to go get a guy that they covet, then all of a sudden guys like Nolan Smith really come into play for me. Miles Murphy, the edge rusher from Clemson, comes into play. Even a guy like Joey Porter Jr. But Darnell Wright's been kicked around as an offensive tackle as well. There's certainly some options there. Speaking about Jalen Carter specifically, I know we talked about this for a couple of weeks. I just can't see him on the Bears board right now because of the legal situation, which is gotten resolved. At the end of the day, unfortunately, 2 people did lose their life, but he was only charged with some misdemeanor stuff. But I think it was that leading into the pro day, and which really concerns the Bears. And there was a report today coming out of the Athletic out of Las Vegas that they have taken him off their draft board. And I think a lot of teams, or especially within the top 10, are going to have Jalen Carter not on their draft board right now. And I think it's going to take a team that has a great infrastructure, kind of a championship environment, to be able to welcome him in and kind of treat him like a luxury, a la the Kansas City Chiefs or something like that, right? Or even like the Buffalo Bills, maybe a little bit later in the draft. So I think he might fall a little bit. Touching on the Bears, draft stuff just really quickly. Jordan Reed, if you guys don't follow him on Twitter, him and I are not related. I spell my name R-E-A-D. He spells his R-E-I-D. But he came out with outstanding 7-round mock draft the other day on ESPN. You got to be an ESPN insider to read it, but I'll go through it real quickly. He had Broderick Jones, number 9 overall to the Chicago Bears, right? And so all of a sudden, he's a very smart guy, Jordan Reed. He even himself is starting to see the buzz a little bit. And then in the second round, I'm trying to fast forward here and get to round 2. Bear with me.
Where the Bears have 2 picks.
Huh?
And where the Bears have 2 picks.
They have 2 picks in the draft, right? So they are drafting at 50.
Scrolling down on your screen.
Yeah, I got it. They're at 53rd overall. So he took Isaiah Foskey, the edge rusher from Notre Dame. So boom, there you go. You get your edge guy right there, right? And
Oh,
then
wow.
he went defense again, and he took Julius Brents, cornerback out of Kansas State. And to me, those would be 3 home run picks for the Bears. You get 3 starters right off the bat. You get your offensive tackle for the next 10 plus years. You get an edge rusher, which you desperately need. You get a cornerback who you can build with, keep Kyler Gordon in the nickel spot. Hopefully, you can re-sign Jalen Johnson, and you've got that secondary solidified for a long time. So I like that draft a lot. If the Bears were to swing out that way.
I know in the comments people are saying Carter drops to the second round. There's no chance he drops out of the first round, in my opinion. It would be very shocking, but stranger things have happened, I should say.
Yeah.
But focusing on the Bears, 10 picks overall, that's second round with those 2 picks. It's like you said, Ross, if you get your tackle, get whoever your guy is at number 9, whether it be Jones or Paris Johnson or one of these other guys that we talked about, then you could really start drafting multiple guys who really are needed, multiple linemen certainly later as you go. But in the second round alone, you might swing for an edge. You might look at a corner. And we haven't talked about wide receiver, where I still think the Bears certainly are looking at a guy. They're going to give Velus Jones another try this year, and he'll certainly have the benefit of having a year under his belt, having played in the NFL. But it's a really deep class of wide receivers. I think the drop off after the top 3 guys is pretty steep, but the Bears could certainly use help there. Who do you want to see besides edge in the second round and beyond?
Yeah, I mean, at some point the Bears are also going to have to adjust this interior offensive line as well, because Cody Whitehair is a little bit up in age. You don't really want to rely on Lucas Patrick maybe as your starting center as well. He was a guy that he's a veteran. He's been in this league for a long time. He was hurt for most of last year. You would like to see Lucas Patrick be an interior backup, so to speak. So I do think that the Bears are going to address the center position as well. Probably, if not the second round, definitely in the third and fourth round, and that'll be your starting center of the future. And then you can line up with Broderick Jones at left tackle. Tevin Jenkins will be your new left guard. Insert rookie at center. Right guard is the guy they just signed. He's escaping my name right now from the Titans. And then your right tackle would be Braxton Jones.
You're talking about Nate.
Yes.
Jones? Yeah.
Nate Davis.
Davis, rather. Yeah.
Yes. And listen, if that's your 5, it's much better than last year.
Very solid. And it goes back to this narrative that Ryan Poles is adding. It's such a really great turnaround, just looking at free agency alone. And you have 10 picks, in the draft upcoming. So it should be a lot of quality and quantity when you're looking at it, and guys who some won't make the roster probably in the later picks. But we've talked about receivers and skill position guys and running backs and how they go beyond, and players that can have a real big impact and go 4th round, 5th round, 7th round, where the Bears have a bunch of picks. They have 2 in the 5th, 2 in the 7th, and you could get some studs there. It's not unheard of for sure. So it's going to be exciting to see what the Bears do. Do you want to see them do anything else in free agency at this point between now and then? There's guys like Jadeveon Clowney out there, and I suppose you could make a run at Rock Yassin, maybe something like that, if you can, I don't know, get a decent contract that's friendly with your cap space right now. But what would you like to see, Ross?
I do think they're going to add a couple veterans, specifically at edge. I still think an offensive tackle could come, even though they're going to draft a rookie at offensive tackle. I still think that you could bring a guy in there just in case your rookie's not ready yet, or even Braxton Jones needs a little bit of a push, or you just need a veteran backup, which we see all the time as guys get hurt in the NFL. So I do think that the Bears are going to add in some veterans. I think they're also holding on to cap space right now because we've seen in this league post-draft cuts, post-June 1st cuts. Big names hit the market, right after the draft and right before and after mini cap starts. And you want to have the flexibility to bring in some of these guys into your team. So the Bears, even with all the moves that they have right now, they still have the most cap space in the NFL. And then, of course, they're going to want to bring back some of their guys too to long-term deals. Cole Kmet is a guy that we talk about, right? We just talked about Jalen Johnson. And, of course, Darnell Mooney seems like a guy that's probably going to be here for a long time as well.
There you go, Ross. Let's go to the rest of the NFL headlines right now. As again, we're just waiting for the draft, and we're seeing guys like Will Levis bulk up from Kentucky, and Richardson out of Florida is, hitting the ceiling on his pro day and doing backflips. And there's some super athletic quarterbacks, and looking outside, obviously, CJ Stroud and Bryce Young, that there's some talent there, and some teams are going to get really lucky. But the big headline right now is certainly just a lot of the dysfunction with Lamar Jackson, as we alluded to earlier. He may have been franchise tagged, but first of all, these questions about him not wanting to play for contract leverage, which just seemed ludicrous when people spouted that out, him sitting out the playoff game, and when Huntley got the start, it didn't make a ton of sense. But we know that he's been unhappy, and he's being very vocal about wanting a trade from the Ravens at this point. People were throwing out the Patriots as a potential landing spot, and then Asante Samuel said, "You don't want to go there, bro." And so many other teams and players, everybody has had their sort of opinion. Are you thinking that Lamar will suit up for the Ravens ultimately, or does this maybe get settled in the offseason where he gets dealt to another team?
Yeah, I think he's done in Baltimore. I think he's been done in Baltimore. Yeah, I think he was done in Baltimore last year, in my opinion. I know he tweeted out this week. He's been tweeting a lot lately. This happens when you don't have an agent, in your corner telling you when to be quiet and when to talk and stuff like that. But I know he tweeted out that he didn't fake any injuries last year or anything like that. But listen, he didn't play down the stretch last year. He didn't play in a playoff game last year. And I think the writing was on the wall back then. To me, the writing was on the wall. Not that he didn't play in the games, because I'll never question if a guy is injured or healthy or not, but he wasn't even on the sidelines for your playoff game, right? And that to me is a big indicator of if a guy is done with a franchise or not. And so I think he's done with them. I think the Ravens would potentially like him back, but on their terms, on their contract terms. So I think Lamar is done with them. And so I think that a trade will happen eventually. Now, there's two timelines for a possible trade. Number one, to me, is obviously between now and the draft. But I think there's only one team that could potentially do that, and I think that's the Indianapolis Colts. And I think as they look at the draft right now and how it's falling into place, they're not going to get Stroud or they're not going to get Bryce Young, right? So you're left with maybe Richardson, although he could go third overall, and Will Levi. Are you a Will Levi guy? And so do you want to trade the fourth overall pick and another first round pick for Lamar Jackson? I think it's a no-brainer because the Colts have been in quarterback hell since Andrew Luck left. But I think that right now there's no use in them betting against themselves because nobody else is going to make those kind of trades right now. I think nobody else wants to trade high round picks right now for Lamar Jackson, and I think this is a more likely scenario. You can wait until after the draft, hold on to the pick that you just made, right? Let's say you're Atlanta for whatever, and Atlanta's at, I don't know where the hell they're at, 6th or 5th or 7th, I don't know where they're at. But let's say you're Atlanta and you just made that pick, and then you can revisit the Lamar Jackson. I know they said they're not interested. I think that's bullshit. I think a lot of teams are saying that just to say that right now is posturing.
Smoke and mirrors. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and then all of a sudden you're trading a 2024 first and a 2025 first round pick. And that's more palatable because you know you're going to be a good football team now that you added Lamar Jackson to the mix. So I think the Lamar Jackson sweepstakes will heat up more so after the draft. And I kind of tweeted this out this week. I know that some sources have said no, but don't sleep on the Patriots because, Robert Kraft is like 80-something years old or 80 years old. Bill Belichick is in his 70s. Do you really think that those guys are just happy with Mac Jones as their quarterback long term? I don't feel good about that if I was a Patriots fan. That guy's a backup. To me, he's a career backup quarterback. And Robert Kraft came out this week. He said that, he addressed what Meek Mill said. And, he said that, most importantly, what he said was, I got the money. I got the money to pay Lamar if I need to. It's Bill's call. And I think that Bill Belichick, who's gushed about Lamar Jackson in the past, could potentially revisit this after the draft.
It makes sense for the Patriots and the Colts. It frankly makes sense for Atlanta, too. I know that Art Blank was talking about his durability, which I don't question, man. I think that he just had a bad string of these last couple of years, and it was smart to sit out that playoff game ultimately, and lashing out is what you're going to do if you're Lamar Jackson. But I just can't really imagine him as a cult. But someone's got to make a run for this guy who is, a couple years removed from being MVP of the league and is a really profoundly good quarterback.
Yeah, he's only 26 years old. And he's a guy who you insert him in your offense. He is your offense. I think people forget this guy threw for over 3,000 yards a couple years ago, had over 30 touchdowns, only 6 interceptions, and also ran for 1,200 yards. Those guys will just they don't just like grow on trees. You can't tell me. Here's the thing that bothers me the most about kind of what these other teams are saying, right? Especially the durability standpoint. Like, you had Matt Ryan for like 10 years, who was just a goddamn statue back there and just would get his ass kicked. And now you see who he is right now. It's like, I actually would want the mobile guy and the guy that moves around a little bit over the statues that's just hit the pocket. Actually, studies show that the quarterbacks who get hurt the most in the NFL are getting hurt from the pocket. And anytime Lamar Jackson has gotten hurt in his career, it is from the pocket. When these guys get on the edge and stuff like that, listen, linebackers are not hitting Lamar Jackson flush or head on. He is too dynamic of an athlete to have that happen to him. So I kind of push back at that. And then it's like, are you really going to tell me if you're Atlanta, you're going to roll with Spencer Rattler as your quarterback? He's like Sierra Miss Lamar Jackson. So I don't know what we're doing here. Like, Lamar Jackson would be awesome. And I think Lamar Jackson's game as he gets older translates really, really well to playing at least half his games indoors, which bodes well for the Colts and the Falcons. I think you put that guy on turf, get him out of the cold weather, I think he becomes an even much better player.
Interesting, something to monitor there. And Ross, I'm not going to lie, Megan Thee Stallion came across my timeline, so I had to focus on better things for a second there. Cliff asked, "Do you guys?"
I got to she's going to get memed a lot.
Oh my God, ESPN was focusing on her assets for sure. Evan, you guys think teams will shy away because of Lamar's actions during these negotiations? So this is like a Roquan Smith sort of situation, right? Where you don't have a Rosen House in your corner, or one of these huge Ari Gold type agents in your corner. And that's a big detractor for a lot of these teams. But ultimately, your talent speaks for yourself, I think. And if you're unhappy, there's going to be a landing spot for you. Unfortunately, I do think that the Ravens do hold the cards to an extent, having tagged him. And for these teams that it could be, again, smoke and mirrors, where he might not, these teams that say they're not interested actually are interested, and see how the draft shakes out. I don't think that teams will, certainly some teams will shy away. But I think more you focus on his age, you focus on what he's done, and then you go and make those calls. And now it's the sort of tampering period, and other teams are going to come knocking and flesh it out. And then you got to talk to the Ravens to see, what they want in return potentially. So it's just a matter of, everything's negotiable, right? As Cliff, you well know. So he could be in a Colts uniform or Falcons come, this summer easily.
Yeah. And I do think that Lamar would have had a deal with the Ravens already if he had an agent. I think what happens is, when you don't have an agent as an athlete, anytime you enter a negotiation and you're the one doing the negotiating, part of a negotiation is they're going to say things not ideal about you because they're trying to bring the cost down, right? And so when the Ravens are in there, they're going to say not great things about you. It shouldn't be any hard feelings. It's just business. But when you're not used to those kind of conversations and you're a guy like Lamar Jackson, you hear that, you probably take a little bit more offense to it. Whereas if you had an agent, he would just kind of brush it off and smooth it over and stuff like that. So I think that whole process, in addition to the communication thing, we saw the weird story last week with the manager guy and stuff like that. This whole thing has hurt Lamar Jackson in that regard. Even still, in a league right now where we are seeing a transition of quarterbacks, and most of the good quarterbacks are in the AFC right now, guys like Lamar Jackson don't just grow on trees. And so you can't tell me, if you're rolling out there Spencer Rattler, Sam Howell, right? I don't know what the hell the Colts are going to do. I've even seen San Francisco's name, kicked around, if you're going to throw Brock Purdy out there coming off of Tommy John surgery, so far and so like Mac Jones. We saw what the Bears did to Mac Jones last year. You have to be in the Lamar Jackson sweepstakes because he's 26 years old. This guy's an MVP. He's a one-man offense. You put him in some of these situations. The Titans, what the hell are the Titans going to do? Is Ryan Tannehill your guy? You have to kick the tires out of him. Absolutely. Like two first-round picks for a guy of Lamar Jackson of caliber. It's a bargain to me. It's nothing. I'll sell that in a second. There she is.
The pitch itself. Let's just play-by-play this. God bless her. Houston zone. While she warms up,
they call her the Stallion for a reason.
The Stallion. Yeah, the chains on and everything, the nails. Just wait for the pitch, though. It's a tough situation if you're the Ravens too, because you're thinking about your history at quarterback. Most recently, Joe Flacco took you to a Super Bowl, and you have a huge talent in Lamar Jackson. You just got to build around him because he didn't have shit to work with to an extent this last year. You had guys like, no one at wide receiver. You had no protection. Much less just a bit outside.
Yeah. So look at the mascot in the back.
Oh my God. At least you didn't throw underhand. There you go.
Watch the hand placement here after the hug. Look at that. Oh, look where the glove was. take it easy. Let's get that glove above the belt.
A barrier.
Above the belt.
Good for you, Megan. Good for you. It's a good time to transition, Ross. Let's talk opening day as we just saw. Man, Jose Abreu, that looks weird in an Astros uniform, and your White Sox are playing as we speak, 0-0, bottom of the second. The Cubs are 1-0. Let's go, beating the Brewers 4-0. I don't know a ton of this roster at all now. But I was happy to see there's a guy named Mastroboni in right field. So how about that? What are your expectations? I know you're tweeting about it that they might be surprising some teams, and I think there's, I feel like their division is certainly wide open. What are your expectations, at least in this first half, looking for your White Sox?
Yeah, I think both Chicago teams could shock some people. Both teams are very much so under the radar. The White Sox came into last year with all the pressure on them. They were World Series contenders, right? They had an old man for a manager, which obviously did not end well. And I think this year, all that talent is still there. All those guys are still there. We lost Jose Abreu, but you enter in Andrew Vaughn, who's just a younger version of first round draft pick. And I think the White Sox could definitely compete in that division. I think what has killed them in the past is they have not been able to beat up on teams in their own division. So they got to handle business against the Twins and the Royals and the Guardians. I almost call them the other word in the Twins, obviously, right? So, but I do think they can compete, and I hope that what I tweeted out earlier was just like it's summer in Chicago is amazing. It's top 3 summertime cities in the world, but it is more fun when both baseball teams are good, right? And let's hope that we can all go out there and sit on a patio at Parsons or Paradise Park or anything like that and enjoy each other's company and have a cold beer in 85-degree weather and also have good baseball to watch in the background and stuff like that. That would be fun. So, I have high hopes for the White Sox. I will be at opening day on Monday at the G Spot at Guaranteed Rate Field. I am also flying out next week to Pittsburgh to go see the White Sox in Pittsburgh's home opener. As people know, I'm a huge Roberto Clemente fan, so I'm making my first pilgrimage to Pittsburgh to go to the museum. I'm going to sit in right field where they've got the 21-foot wall. I'm going to rep my White Sox, but also show some love to Roberto Clemente. So I'm excited about the season. I live one stop away from the red line. I hope that they're good enough I can go to a ton of games this year. How you feel about the Cubs, though?
Never been to Pittsburgh. I actually do feel good about the Cubs as much as I make a joke there because they've, as much as they've just completely went away from that core of 2016, which is a long time coming, right? You start to re-up on age. And so they've really rebuilt this infield. And look at Dansby Swanson, who played really well today. He had an RBI. He was making contact with the ball. And then you look at Trey Mancini, who's another guy and Bellinger. So it's got potential, right? And you're certainly chasing the Cardinals, who have been who are usually the class of the Central, I feel like. But I feel good about it. It just ultimately, like every year with the Cubs, it does fall largely on pitching. And Marcus Stroman getting a good win today, and 6 innings pitched. So I feel good about it. We shall see. There's a little bit of optimism. I want to see that shift now that Wrigleyville is the Wrigleyville that the Ricketts envisioned, right? You can't fucking build that that part of town out anymore. The hotels are there, all the newer bars are there. You've torn down a lot of the old ones, besides sluggers and shit. That now you can focus on putting together a perhaps winning roster at this point. So yeah, it'll be good. It'll be good times this summer. In Pittsburgh, I've never been to Pittsburgh. I don't know what to do in Pittsburgh. Is that where they got pit beef and shit like that? What else is on your list?
I don't know. There's a bunch of gastropubs. They actually have like some good breweries out there, some whiskey distilleries and stuff like that. So I'll be there Thursday evening through Sunday morning. Obviously, it's Easter weekend, but we're gonna go to the game on Friday afternoon. I'm probably gonna go to the game again. It's a Saturday night game and just kind of hang out. The weather looks surprisingly decent, like 65 degrees. I've never been there either. I heard it's on the water, which is going to be cool. Our hotel is staying literally right on the water. You cross a bridge, and PNC Park is right there. So I'm excited. I like crossing off a city that I've never been to, and then B, a ballpark I've never been to as well. And again, I'm huge. I've been a Clemente kind of follower since I was a young man. Both what he did on and off the field was absolutely amazing. So it's going to be cool to kind of be there and go to the museum and stuff like that as well.
You've said the museum twice now, Ross. We'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Clemente Museum, got to go.
Yeah, you do. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And you get to see a bunch of what was the Dark Knight Rising? There's a bunch of
it was Dark Knight Rises was shot there. Yeah, I'll run on the field like Heinz Ward as Bane blows it up. It'll be fun.
Just Bane throughout Pittsburgh. Did like
I
Cliff
was raised in the darkness, molded by it.
I liked Cliff's comments about. I also don't know how, on the note of Megan Thee Stallion, women get into pants like that. It's unbelievable.
It's a lot of jumping and praying.
Jumping into it. Nice. Nice shot there.
Good work, glove placement. Look at that glove placement. He is the happiest person.
Look at that smile. It's like he touched his first ass. Love it. All right, moving on to to the NCAA tourney. And again, this is one of the craziest March Madnesses we could have ever hoped for, as we saw, going back to Purdue going down, and again, a number 1 seed losing was incredible. But now look at this Final Four. Cinderella is certainly FAU. You could name any of these teams, I feel like, in the Final Four. But UConn taking on Miami, while San Diego State plays FAU, who keeps topping themselves. It's 0 top 30 recruits left now amongst these teams, as far as looking ahead to playing in the majors. Gary's own John L. Davis has been a big leader for FAU, but it's more about what March is about, I feel like, with these teams playing with such good chemistry, and that's what takes you to that next level. So FAU, a couple games away from being tourney champs, and the same could be said about SDSU, where there was that controversy against Creighton, but they're in the Final Four for good reason after they beat Alabama, amongst other teams. They've been solid defensively. They got a group that's been playing together for a while. And then on the other side, you got UConn, who just beat the tar out of Gonzaga by almost 30. And they've been doing this all tournament long, beating teams soundly, efficient on both ends of the floor. There are questions about their head coach, but those have certainly been answered. And, they're in a good place right now. They're playing a Miami team that's really hot. They've been a surprise, beating heavyweight after heavyweight. They took down Texas most recently. And then Houston before that. Jordan Miller, he didn't miss in that game, the senior for the team for the Hurricanes, and Isaiah Wong, that's a big contributor to the backcourt as well. It makes for an exciting Final Four right now. The Hurricanes also making free throws, which is huge in college, and you don't see a lot of. Are you pulling for any of these teams? I feel like UConn's still the favorite, but I could easily see San Diego State is just so good about pacing these games out, where they could certainly make a run. Or one of these other teams. What do you think, Ross? You been following it?
Yeah, I've been following it. I watched a lot of basketball last week out of town. That's the beauty of being on the West Coast is these games are like super duper early in the
Yeah,
afternoon, the evening, and stuff like that. So I've been digging what Miami's been doing. They've been super impressive to me throughout the whole tournament. They've been a team that has been knocking down 3 pointers like crazy. Throughout the tournament. But then in the last game, they actually just relied a lot on 2 pointers. They didn't even, they barely shot any threes, and so they showed their versatility a little bit. I like a team like Miami. Just is the team that we've known for a long time as a powerhouse football school, but it's been a decent basketball program the last couple of years. But for them now to be in this Final Four spot is really really fun. The jerseys look cool. I've always been a fan of Hurricanes jerseys and
yeah.
stuff like that.
Nice.
So it's I like their program a lot. San Diego State, I've always loved San Diego State's program. I love the school. Obviously, it's known predominantly as a baseball school, but they've also had a decent football program as well. And then FAU, shout out to them for just it's what we love about the tournament of the little guy keep pushing ahead. And I feel like every single year, the last couple of years, we've been seeing little guys just push a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. And all of a sudden, we've got Florida Atlantic. I couldn't tell you where, I couldn't point to you on a map where Florida Atlantic was at.
Right.
But they are here now in the Final Four. But listen, this is a team that's 35-3. And so we call them little guys, the underdogs, but they have only 3 losses all year, and I think it shows you the talent level in college basketball is kind of leveling out a little bit, especially when your top 2 picks will be in the NBA draft this year will be Victor Wembanyama and Scoot Harris. Those guys are both not college basketball players, and so when you start to bring the elite talent out of it, it starts to level the gap. But even if you look in the NBA, Sacramento Kings clinched a playoff berth last night, and we're starting to see the balance of power start to level out a little bit throughout basketball. I just think because we do have such high quality basketball players now, the skill set is getting better and better. So it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be exciting to see. You and your lovely wife and daughter will be over here on Saturday. We will definitely be able to watch at least the first game kick off.
Yeah.
And I'm excited. And Monday night is when they start these games. I'm going to get on my soapbox. I'm going to start the game at like probably almost 9 o'clock, like they usually
Oh,
do.
Lord. The worst.
And yeah, and go through all that shit. One shiny moment will start. We'll wrap up right about midnight.
You sleep on your couch. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how it goes, my friend. Yeah, Kings ending their 16-year playoff drought. That came to an
Yeah.
end. And
Yep.
yeah, shout out to Dusty May, the FAU basketball coach. He's probably going to get a contract from some other team, you would think. And going
Yep.
back to your point about the depth in college basketball and just the pool of talent now is bananas. Look at McDonald's All-American game where Bronny James was the big headline maker on Tuesday, but there's just all sorts of talent where you think these guys could certainly just jump. Some of these guys could certainly jump right to the NBA. So it's exciting to see again that aspect of March Madness where you see these teams come together in San Diego State and all these teams here for that reason, where you see a grouping of some of these upperclassmen who've played a lot of these games together, trying to get to that one shining moment where they're raising the ultimate trophy. And on the note of that, we got to give a shout out to the women because it's pretty
Mhm.
incredible tournament as well, where Louisville versus Iowa had more TV viewers than any NBA game at ESPN aired all season this past Sunday. It was
Mhm.
worth the watch alone for Caitlin Clark when she's raining threes and doing the John Cena and fucking
Yes.
had 41-point triple double in that game. And Iowa
Yes.
plays unbeaten South Carolina, led by Dawn Staley, and that's a great story as well. That's at 8 o'clock tomorrow night,
Yep.
and Virginia Tech and LSU before that. These ladies are really impressive. Caitlin Clark is just won the Naismith too, and she's out of this world, man.
Listen, we've seen, throughout our lifetimes, we've seen Cheryl Millers and we've seen, Diana Taurasi and we've seen Rebecca Lobo and Lisa Leslie and some big time stars for women's basketball. But she might be the one. She might be the one that puts this sport in much needed in a category very similar to where women's soccer is at right now, especially with the national games and how popular the women's national soccer team is. She might be the one that really is going to start getting a bigger group of masses to pay attention to women's basketball. Just wait till she gets to the next level. Hopefully, fingers crossed, she comes to the Chicago Sky. She gets drafted by the Chicago Sky. And yeah, that she's gonna have endorsement deals. You're gonna see her face everywhere as you should. And she is a superstar in all the sports. It doesn't matter if it's men's or women's. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, Don Bird, nobody wants Piston tickets. You take that shit out of our chat. That's what I'm saying.
It's like the old joke is like, I had 2 Piston tickets and somebody broke into my car and left 3.
Well played. There it is, Ross. You've been watching Snowfall?
I have been watching Snowfall. I am completely caught up. Spoiler alert.
I'm not completely caught
I won't
up.
do it. I won't do
behind.
it.
Yeah, I got up to well, spoiler alert for those who haven't watched any of it, but R.I.P. Jerome. That's the most recent one that I watched.
That is the most recent one. Yes.
Oh boy, man. So we got a new one tonight, and it's a great character arc for him, and it's fucking crazy how things have fallen off the wheels here. Yeah, watching that and Shrinking and Ted Lasso and all the good stuff at this point.
Yeah.
I started. Succession came back. Are you a Succession guy?
Came back. I am a Succession guy. I watched the episode on Sunday. It was good.
Gotta see the family dysfunction. We love it.
Absolutely. Shout out to Roman Roy, my favorite character on the show. He's hilarious. Macaulay Culkin's younger brother, Kieran. I started Yellow Jackets on Showtime, which is just bonkers. It's about the girls' high school soccer team that got to the plane crash, and they do some weird stuff to survive, and then they kind of come to grips with it as adults and have to. It's a good show. So check out Yellow Jackets as well. But yeah, we got some good TV stuff. Ted Lasso came back. I haven't jumped into it yet. I like binge watching Ted Lasso, so probably jump into that in a couple of weeks. But yeah, we got some good stuff right now, and we got some. We're about to head into the blockbuster movie season soon. We get the Mario movie next week. I'm super excited about that.
All-star cast. Yeah,
that's gonna be a family affair going to the Mario movie. I can't wait for that. And on the music side, we get another Tyler the Creator album tomorrow. Did you know that?
Oh, a new one? Or are we getting the deluxe version of Call Me If You Get Lost? This is a new one?
I think we're getting a new album tomorrow. I think he's doing another album with DJ Drama, and DJ Drama is also coming out with his own solo album tomorrow. So we're getting double DJ Drama projects tomorrow, one for Tyler the Creator and then one compilation album for himself. So yeah, a little new music heading into the weekend.
Goodness. On the note of music, I was, I'm trying to keep up with the young people, Ross, as the Lollapalooza lineups are out, and I'm trying to understand Ice Spice's Little Orphan Annie haircut, and I saw she sampled "I Need a Girl," and I know Diddy got paid for that. It's like all these beats are getting recycled. I heard this other rapper sampled "Freak a Leak." Yes. And I hope Petey Pablo got paid for that. Lord knows we don't know what he's doing. Probably
sure
the day job.
For that. Yeah. Yes.
Crazy. These beats getting recycled. I don't know. Ice Spice isn't for me. You into Ice Spice?
No, that's a little too young for me.
Doing, but yes. Yeah, I don't know.
Yes. No.
Tyler the Creator would be nuts, though. Oh, we didn't talk about with the NFL. Who do you want seeing wear number 0 on the Bears and beyond?
Oh yeah, Darnell Mooney had
Alvin Ridley's wearing 0, right?
He's wearing 0. Michael Parsons said that he's going to switch to the number 0. Darnell Mooney had tweeted out like a little, one of these things, and then he found out that when you switch numbers in the NFL, you have to buy the back jersey numbers that you had before. And I think Darnell Mooney probably saw the bill for that and said, I think I'll stick with number 11. So, you've got to be pretty up there in money and stature to be able to make the switch to pay for that. So I don't like the fact that they don't open it up to the linemen, though. Wouldn't it be cool to have like?
I was going to say a D lineman or a center wearing 0 would be fucking great. Yeah,
even like if the Bears were to draft Broderick Jones, like obviously he would wear number 59 because that's where he were in college, but. Man, number 0 on the left side would be pretty freaking cool too. Number 0 protecting number 1 while he's throwing it to number 2, DJ Moore. It's sitting right there for you.
Be pretty cool.
Yeah.
You following this Bulls push for the play-in, Ross? As they most recently lost to the Lakers. That was fun for the jawing and LeBron and Austin Reeves doing the too small gesture back at Pat Beverly.
Yes, a little bit. Yeah, it was fun, but obviously they got their butts kicked last night. This Bulls team is what they have been all year. It's been 1 step forward, 2 steps back. I fully expect for them to, if not get their butts kicked in the play-in game, maybe they win the play-in tournament, and then the Milwaukee Bucks will be waiting for them and just sweep their asses out the way and move on.
That'd be something. We didn't talk about the MLB rule changes, but it looks like it's already rave reviews as far as, we talked about them a couple weeks ago as far as what is implemented and tried out in spring training. This pitch clock, man, love it. I'm so into it.
Yes, shorter games. That's what we always wanted. A game should be no more than like 2 hours long, and so anytime you can have a game 2 hours long, you can kind of speed it up a little bit. It's going to help the younger kids get more into the games. It'll help us old guys get to sleep on time for these night games. Even if you're like a guy and you want to watch, we just saw what Shohei Ohtani did in the WBC, right? And we want to watch Shohei Ohtani, who plays on the West Coast. I gotta wait till 9 o'clock until his games start, and then you gotta wait until after midnight to see him get 3 at bats and pitch 6 innings. Well, now that all speeds up a little bit, so it's just much better for the sport overall. It had to get faster, had to get quicker, it had to kind of step into the 23rd, the 21st century. So I love it. Exciting for it. White Sox game already is in the bottom of the third right now. They've started
basically moving, man.
Yeah, basically since you and I have been on air, so that's perfect.
Absolutely. Usually take a lot longer. It would be bottom of the first by the time we wrap up, I feel like, man.
Yes.
The Mark Twain Prize for Literature, whatever it was awarded to Adam Sandler, Ross. So in honor of that, we'll do a quick top 5. Yeah, you make that face. You're like, what? But he got honored in D.C. a couple weeks ago, and so they aired it on CNN.
Oh, I did see some of that.
Yeah, give me your top 5. And it was great. If you haven't seen it, Conan, of course, is on there, and his usual crew of his cronies of Dana Carvey and Pete Davidson was there, also making jokes about Ice Spice and everybody like that. But give me your quick top 5 of your Adam Sandler movies.
Top 5 off the top of my head. Big Daddy would be number 1 for me. Number 1 for me would be Big Daddy. Number 2 would be Happy Gilmore with Me. I am also a big fan of 50 First Dates. Yep, I do not hate the Longest Yard remake. So that one is probably up there for me.
Top 5. Okay.
Yep, that's in my top 5. And where are we at? Was that 4? What is that?
That's 4. Yeah.
That's 4. Let's go with The Wedding Singer for number 5.
Hey, there it is.
Yes.
Yeah, you can kick out The Longest Yard and give me Mr. Deeds.
Mr. Deeds. Is that the foot movie?
Yeah, I like feet. I don't know why. That's a great one. Steve Buscemi with the crazy eyes.
Yes,
he's partying with Johnny.
Buscemi's in like 4 or 5 Sandler movies.
Steve Buscemi is in so many goddamn movies, and that he had one of the funnier parts in that whole ceremony in DC for Adam Sandler. He was just basically pretending to be wasted. He's like, I don't know why you call me the Boosh. I'm a serious actor. It was hysterical because, he's fucking Nucky Thompson in Boardwalk Empire. He does have all these serious roles, but he's like, you made me a comedic actor, and I thank you. But dude, shout out to Adam Sandler, because what's clear, even though he's making Murder Mystery 2 and Hotel Transylvania, is his work ethic is bananas. And I certainly grew up with Sandler movies and his great hits on Saturday Night Live and all the great sketches from Opera Man to Lunch Lady. And he's just a fucking treasure, man. I was bummed that he played the United Center recently and I could not go to it. I was out of town. I probably would have gotten those plates for that. Hell, just to check it off the bucket list.
Absolutely.
We have nothing to promote. Thanks to everybody for tuning in onto the YouTube here to watch us. And thanks to the Barflies for chiming in, except for Don Burr. And you can follow us on Twitter. Follow me at 311Mac. Follow Ross at Ross Reed. Thanks to Aldo for directing and producing. If you missed any of the show, remember the audio-only version is, of course, on Spotify, iTunes, wherever you get your audio. And this will also be on YouTube very soon. Lots of Barroom Network programming coming up. Follow them at the Barroom Network on Twitter. But for now, everybody, enjoy your weekend. Be good to each other out there. So long.
Peace.